All right, last one. This is the one. Is this the game you're most excited
Yes,
about?
absolutely. I am pumped for this
Yeah.
game.
You got your SEC orange ready to put on
Oh,
for
thousand
Tennessee
percent.
for Tennessee this weekend. Yeah, this is a fun one because both teams I think are in such different places. Like I think Tennessee just kind of feels blessed to be in. Like they were kind of on the outside looking
Yeah,
in when like that chaotic day in the SEC happened
right.
where just everyone lost. Ole Miss lost, Alabama lost. It did somebody else dropped a game too that kind of eliminated them. But like everybody
South
was
Carolina
losing.
beat Clemson. We thought that was going to decide
Yeah.
something, but it didn't.
Well, that was a couple weeks later. But Tennessee not sneaks in, but slides in because they were able to avoid that just
Absolute
disastrous loss
meltdown at
late
the
that
end.
everybody else had. And Ohio State just absolutely down in the dumps, hates everything right now. They're a home playoff team and they hate life.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
they want Ryan Day fired, and he's got his team
so
in the playoffs.
same question for them, and it might be the same answer. Do you think that hearing everything they've heard for the last 2.5, 3 weeks about Ryan Day and the Michigan loss and everything else, that can do one of two things? That can galvanize a team,
Mhm.
or depending on the leadership, depending on
Yeah,
what happens at the top, that can also cause some of that doubt. So
yeah.
I'm not expecting you to know what's going on in the Ohio State locker room, but if you had to lean one way or the other, again, a lot of this pressure is on Ohio State. How do you think they respond to it?
I think Ohio State has historically struggled with SEC teams. I think obviously, I'm biased. My husband played on that '06 Florida team that beat Ohio State in the national championship game. But I just think about the bravado that comes from feeling like you sit at the top of the Big Ten, right? Like, and at that point in time, it was considered the premier conference, right? Like it was almost Ohio State, Michigan. Florida wasn't even going to have a shot because, talking heads thought that we'd rather see a matchup of a 6-3 game, whatever that score was, instead, and I don't know that I think that those teams are built to compete with the SEC on a regular basis. Obviously, this isn't a regular basis, and they will have had weeks to get ready for it. But I question whether Ryan Day has that it factor to get these teams to the level that Urban Meyer got those Ohio State teams. And I think that's kind of forever what he's chasing. If that makes sense, he was born on third base, right? Like Meyer handpicked him as the heir apparent when all of that stuff went down, and that was who was going to take over. And heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Like that is, he hasn't lived up to that expectation yet, even though he was given so much. And I think everybody has a very short fuse with him too because of that. Ohio State fans, I think that there is some bitterness that comes from the fact that he has yet to be able to live up to expectations, and he can't beat Michigan, which is a cardinal sin up there. But I think they're going to struggle with Tennessee, and I think some of this is lack of mental toughness, and I think it stems from the top.
So here's the caveat for Ohio State, and I didn't put this in the notes, but I just think about it. They lost a really bad game to Michigan in 2022.
Hmm.
Michigan beat them 45-23, and they bounced back like immediately in the first round of the college football playoff. They did lose to Georgia 42-41. It was that classic game where they lost on a missed field goal, right? But they
Yeah,
played the eventual national champions as good as well as anybody else did the entire
yeah,
year, right? Like the 1 point game. And if they win that, they go on to beat TCU, I'm pretty sure, and win it
right.
all, right? They're a missed field goal away from that. And so I do think their response in that was pretty impressive. And so what I wonder is, like, Ohio State played really well against Indiana, against Penn State, against Oregon. They lost the Oregon game again, close at the end. But
Yeah.
I do think they've played really well, and so I wonder if it's who they are or if it's just the Michigan. Like they just can't beat that team. Like Tennessee with Florida when Peyton was there. Like they were great, but they just could not beat Florida, right? And so to me, I almost wonder if that is more of it. And I don't know the answer to that, but if it almost feels like Ohio State will play everybody incredibly well. They may win, they may lose, but it's just Michigan that Ryan Day, for some reason, mentally just cannot get out of his own way on. I also think Tennessee is a tough matchup, and so maybe that plays into it too. But he did get them to respond pretty well 2 years ago. And again, they
Well, he
lost that
also
game to
had
Georgia.
Stroud as a quarterback then, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. but they're really talented now too. Obviously, quarterback matters a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't think Will Howard is great. I think he's fine, serviceable or whatever. But I mean, they have a ton of
Heisman
talent.
winning quarterback, serviceable quarterback. That can absolutely,
Make
make
a
a difference
difference.
there.
I think Tennessee's set up well to do this. You asked about like home field advantages.
Yeah.
I think they have the best. I wrote this a little bit later, but I'll jump to it now. I think they have the best running back in the SEC on their team in Dylan Sampson. And I mean, even against Georgia, going up over 100 yards in Athens, they lost that game.
Yeah.
Their defense is so good and their running game is so good that if you're playing on the road in cold weather, like that's exactly what you want. Like you,
Yeah.
you want a really good
Yeah.
running game, and a really good defense. And when Nico's on, he's really, really good too. But I
Yeah.
think they're going to be able to lean on the running game and their defense to where they don't have to put that pressure on him.
Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure for a really young quarterback.
Yeah, going on the road and playing a game in December is insane. I wonder, if Will Howard plays well, which there's been times he's played much better than others.
Yeah.
Ohio State's wide receivers are insane. Like, there's no doubt about it. They've got the best. Well, Oregon's are really good too, and Colorado's really good. But I think they've got a top 3 wide receiver unit in college football. Can
Wide
get him the
receiver
ball.
room is incredible, but just Jeremiah Smith by himself probably gets you, ranked in the top 5 there.
Right. But can Will Howard get him the ball? Like,
Yeah.
that certainly matters. Like, Ohio State's wide receivers are so much better than Tennessee's. It's not even funny. And Tennessee really likes their wide receivers. I'm not trying to crap on them.
Sure.
Ohio State's wide receivers are just better than just about everybody's, right? 130 teams. And so if Will Howard can get them the ball, can keep the pressure off of, I think they've got to get pressure on him. He's not been good under pressure. Most quarterbacks aren't. But if he has time, I think Ohio State's wide receivers are the difference. If he doesn't have time, then I think it's Tennessee's defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, Tennessee's defensive line has been incredibly impressive this season. And they're just a physical football team. I don't know, and I know everybody's going to be so upset well, they're not actually, because this is an SEC channel, so they agree with me. But I know people hate the SEC, beating their chest or whatever. But Tennessee is going to have played so many more physical games all throughout the season than Ohio State has. And that does prepare you for these big moments, right? I mean, it may keep a 4th team out because we've all beaten up on each other, but the 3 that go there will certainly be well-tuned. And I kind of think that that's what we'll see from a trenches perspective with Tennessee.
Yeah, I will say, I'll push back there a little bit and say that I think the Big Ten's pretty physical. I don't think they have the talent out at skill positions that the SEC does, but I do think that up front, they
but
play
it's
some pretty physical teams.
The speed that's coupled with
Right.
the
I'll agree with that. I'll agree with
capability.
like the speed and the athleticism, but like,
Yeah, and that's the difference. The Big Ten is known for its trenches, right? And that
Right.
that's the big boy football, those corn-fed guys that you're going to fill up your trenches with. And I understand all of that, but you take a kid that size, but now he runs a 4.5, and has no problem trucking his mom, to get the last sandwich or whatever. It's just they're just built differently.
Thank you guys so much for watching a peek inside the SEC. We did a live show on Wednesday night where we predicted not only this game, but all of the college football playoff round 1 games. You can click the video on the screen right now to see that in its entirety and see all of the predictions that we made. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll talk to you soon here on a peek inside SEC football.